This is my 26-year-old 1999 Isuzu Trooper. All right. This is my 26-year-old 1999 Isuzu Trooper. It has a 3.5 liter V6 and makes about 215 horsepower and about 230 pounds of torque. It has a fuel tank capacity of 22 gallons and gets about 15 miles per gallon, roughly. This truck has been sitting in my backyard for about 4 years. I bought it as a fun camping / fishing vehicle. Got it for $400. The previous owner had it sitting also for a few years, so it's definitely been sitting for a while. He had the engine swapped with a engine out of another Trooper that was about 20,000 miles less than this one. Currently this one sits at about 220,000 miles roughly, but it started having transmission issues and he didn't want to put more money into it, so he ended up selling it. I've owned a Isuzu Rodeo for about 7 years. The Rodeo and the Trooper have a lot in common, pretty much the same internals, including the transmission, which is a 4L30E. So I'm very familiar with the way these vehicles work. Figured I could probably get this one running again fairly easily. So after letting it sit in my backyard for about 4 years, just not having the time to work on it, finally got a battery for it. The engine would start up and would run great, but because of the old gas and the gas tank inside dissolving, the fuel pump stopped working. So I pulled the fuel pump and cleaned the inside of the tank and got it running again. Now that it was running again, I could figure out what was going on with the transmission. It would not shift into any gear except for reverse. After doing some research online and discovering that when I would put it in winter mode, it would shift into third gear and would drive fine, meaning that the low gear band had come out of adjustment. So I pulled the pan, replaced the filter, readjusted the low gear band to the proper torque spec, and refilled it with the proper fluid. From what I've read online, don't use Valvoline Max Life or any of the modern Dextron 6s. They say they're backwards compatible, but according to most people online, the viscosity is actually quite different, and these transmissions heavily rely on that specific viscosity. So the recommended transmission fluid for this vehicle is Dextron 3, which is what this transmission was designed for. I think most O'Reilly's stock it. A lot of people recommend Castrol, or I think O'Reilly's has like a house blend. Also recommend putting in a transmission cooler to help extend the life of this transmission. After putting the transmission back together, the vehicle was shifting again good. I could actually drive from a stop. It would shift into first and second gear. But I did notice there was a hesitation, and I'm pretty sure the damage had already been done to it, which is how it got out of adjustment in the first place. So after about 300 miles, it started slipping in first and then a little bit in second as well. So reading online, I discovered that if you disconnect the 4-pin transmission harness, this puts the transmission in a manual mode, or they call it basically kind of like a manual mode. It disables the shifting solenoids inside the transmission. From that point, first gear on the shifter is first gear. Second gear on the shifter becomes third gear, skipping second gear altogether. And then third gear and D, the drive on the shifter, becomes fourth gear, which is also your overdrive. So after doing that, I am now able to, from a complete stop, take off in third gear, and once on the highway or at about 3,000 RPMs, shift into fourth. And I've been driving like that for probably about 3,000 miles now. However, I do not recommend doing this. It's just a temporary solution to get the vehicle driving again until you can afford to take it to a transmission shop and get it actually rebuilt properly. I haven't noticed anything weird. I haven't had any overheating problems, but I do feel like it's probably putting a lot more strain on the vehicle, on the engine itself. So I do plan on getting a rebuild as soon as I can. Okay, so here I'm going to give you a nice walk around of the vehicle and show you some of the inside and some of the modifications I've already made, and tell you about some of the modifications I plan on making in the future. I plan to take this vehicle on as many fishing, camping, outdoor activities as I can. It's a very capable vehicle and I really do enjoy it. This truck currently has 10-year-old tires on it with lots of dry rot, so that will be one of the first things I replace soon, as well as a full suspension upgrade and maybe a 2-3 inch lift. So far I've replaced the fuel pump and the transmission fluid and added a transmission cooler to the front as well as a much beefier battery. I built a pretty crude sleeping platform in the back. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to rebuild it, but for now it does the job, and I'll show you some footage here of what it's like loading in and out the memory foam mattress that I bought on Amazon. You can get these mattresses for about $200. I'll leave a link in the description. I also plan on getting a vacuum seal bag for it to help collapse it down to make it easier to store and travel with. I also usually bring bug nets. They also sell some bug nets on Amazon. I'll link those as well, that slide over the door frame so you can roll down the windows and sleep in there. I'll usually have a little battery operated fan that works pretty well for keeps it pretty comfortable in there. I also plan to make some curtains for privacy, and I'll be sure to make a video on that. So here's the platform. The rear doors open nice and wide. All in all, you have about 4.5 feet across and about 6.5 feet tall. So lots of sleeping room, lots of storage space. And even with the sleeping platform that I built in here, there's still a lot of headroom, so pretty comfortable. Some of the additions I plan to make are installing a steel bumper on the front. Definitely some off-road lights, maybe a winch. I plan to replace these tires as soon as possible, probably with 32s or 33s, haven't really decided yet. Might go a little bit smaller because of having the extra flex might be beneficial. I plan on building a roof rack on the top and maybe putting an awning on there. Overall, very happy with this vehicle. Being 26 years old, it definitely has some problems, but it's still very capable. And that's my 1999 Isuzu Trooper.